Hey, Truth Seekers, welcome back. Zach here. This video is a thank you to the channel Stinky Cash. Stinky Cash is a talented video maker. I do not agree with him on all of his content, just as he does not agree with me on all of my content. And at the beginning of this baseball season, when I made the prediction that the Mets would be in the World Series, Stinky Cash, as a New York native, as a Mets fan, decided to take the liberty to make fun of my prediction and my methods of using gematria and numerology. He was saying they were baseless methods, they were ridiculous, I was ridiculous. It got a little bit nasty. In the beginning of the baseball season, Stinky Cash even had a video up making fun of my video on the first no-hitter of the season where I said that no-hitter was proof that the Mets would be in the World Series. Anyhow, Stinky Cash has since taken down that video, I think in part because he realized the Mets went to the World Series. I'm not mad at him over any of that. For both of us, this has been a lesson learned. What I want to show here is how he has been a big enough man to admit that he was wrong and that there really is something to this rigging of sports as I am trying to teach the world. Stinky Cash, a very talented video maker, uploaded this video yesterday in light of all that he observed this past season. Please enjoy, and thank you again, Stinky Cash.
Hey guys, StinkyCash here. Today I want to talk about the Major League Baseball World Series and whether or not professional sports are rigged. Okay, everybody who knows me knows that I love baseball, I grew up with it, and I'm a huge Mets fan. Now there's another YouTuber out there who goes by the name of Zachary K. Hubbard, and he does all this great work with gematria and uncoding all the numerology hitting throughout history and the news media headlines and even sports. And he
I just got to pause right there. It's nice to hear him say that I do great work. At the beginning of the baseball season, he certainly didn't think my work was great. And again, for all of my critics and skeptics out there, this can be you too. I don't really care what any of you think about me. All I care about is that people wake up to the truth of what's going on in this world. For my own sanity, I need my fellow man to wake up. I've been awake all my life. I've been demonized all my life for being awake. I'm tired of living in this world this way. I want people to wake up to truth. That's all I want. All right, let's continue.
is pretty much certain, he's convinced himself that sports are 100% scripted and that they're scripted by the numbers. It's not just rigged and fixed, but it's actually scripted, and the numerology has a lot to do with it.
I'll pause there and I'll say I haven't convinced myself. What's convinced me is watching sports, the outcomes, and the way the games are manipulated. Just a small detail.
Now, I've seen a lot of the anomalies. I tend to think the NBA and the NFL are more scripted than Major League Baseball, but I still haven't been 100% convinced that Major League Baseball is scripted. But I admit that I've seen the anomalies. And during this past World Series, which my team made it to, the New York Mets played the Kansas City Royals, I watched with an open mind, and I did see some anomalies in the World Series. And in this video, I tend to break down some of those plays and some of those numbers, so-called coincidences that I discovered. So if you go back to March, I made a video titled Yale Skull and Bones and the Occult Origins of the New York Mets. And in this video, I broke down the history of the Mets, their original owners, who were Joan Whitney Payson and George Herbert Walker II, who were both Yale Skull and Bonesmen, Freemasons, occultists, you name it. Okay? The Mets are all wrapped up in the occult. And in that video, I more or less predicted the Mets to win the World Series based on a theory surrounding Matt Harvey, number 33, the savior of the Mets. Now, the Mets didn't win the World Series, but that doesn't mean that the World Series wasn't scripted. It just means that we read it wrong. It could very well have been that the Mets were supposed to win the pennant and lose in the World Series to Kansas City, which is exactly what happened. So let's go over some of the anomalies I saw. Let's start off with Game 3. Game 3 was the only game of the series that the New York Mets won. They won 9-3. Zachary K. Hubbard has done a lot of work showing the significance of the number 39 and 93 and its relation to the city of New York. This was the only game the Mets won, and the game time officially was 3 hours and 22 minutes, or 3-2-2, which is the number of Yale Skull and Bones. So it would make sense that a team who was founded by members of Skull and Bones would win with a game time of 3-2-2. That's pretty perfect. Now in this game, the captain of the New York Mets, David Wright, hit his first and only World Series home run. But look at this pitch that Wright hits out of the ballpark for a home run. Boom. That pitch was right down the middle. Center, belt high, right down the middle. You couldn't have placed that ball on a tee any better for Wright. If this game was scripted and Wright was supposed to hit a home run in this at-bat, that's exactly where the pitcher would throw the ball. Right down the middle, belt high. Here you go, David. I'm placing it on a tee for you. Knock it out of the ballpark. It could have just been a mistake. The pitcher could have just missed his spot. It could have just been a bad pitch. But either way, that is the most perfect pitch I've ever seen to hit out of the ballpark. The pitch is elevated. It's at the belt. It's easy to drive over the wall. You can't deny this. The other anomaly I saw in this game was that the last play of the game was a ground ball hit to David Wright, who made the last out. The announcer, Joe Buck, even made a comment saying, "Isn't this fitting that the last out of the game should be hit to David Wright?" But look at the swing by a guy who is a great hitter, an all-star, Kendry Morales. Look at the swing he takes on the last pitch of the game, on Familia's 11th pitch of the game. This swing is the most awkward swing I've ever seen. It's almost as if he was intentionally trying to hit the ball to Wright. I mean, look at the swing in slow motion. He couldn't have placed the ball any better right at David Wright. Now, maybe he was fooled. Maybe it was a nasty pitch. It looks like a 94-mile-an-hour sinker or split finger. But either way, he's a great hitter. And that swing looked awkward as hell, and it sure as hell looked like he was intentionally trying to hit the ball directly at David Wright, as if it was scripted that David Wright, the captain of the Mets, who had hit the home run early in the game, was supposed to make the last out of the game. And that's why Joe Buck made the comment about that. Now let's move on to Game 4. The GOAT of Game 4 for the New York Mets was Daniel Murphy, who was the hero in the National League Championship Series versus the Cubs. Now, the Cubs haven't won a World Series in like 100 years because they're said to be cursed by the Billy Goat, which was named Murphy, which is funny because Murphy played the GOAT of Game 4. And in a Twitter commercial, which aired before the World Series, they put a goat over Daniel Murphy's head. Now, was this predictive programming? Was this foreshadowing the fact that Murphy was going to be the GOAT of this series? Possibly. Either way, I find it disrespectful that they would put a goat head over a nice Christian boy's head like Daniel Murphy. So now let's fast forward to Game 5. The game that I thought the Mets would win. They had Matt Harvey, number 33, their savior, on the mound. But let's look at some of the numbers surrounding this game. Matt Harvey threw exactly 111 pitches. In the last game of the 111th World Series, which was played on November 1st, or 11-1. And it ended in New York, which if you sum in simple English gematria, equals 111. Is that coincidence? It's a hell of a coincidence. Now, it was controversial, but Matt Harvey argued his way back into the game for the 9th inning. He ended up blowing the game in the 9th inning. And because he wasn't able to record a single out in the 9th, he ended his season with exactly 216 innings. Now, Matt Harvey's innings limit has been highly publicized. It's been a great deal of controversy. His agent, Scott Boras, didn't want Matt to go over 180 innings for the season, and this was reported, and the media completely blew it up. But the fact that he didn't record a single out in the 9th, he finished his season with exactly 216 innings. There are 216 stitches on a baseball. 216 is 6 cubed, or 666. 6 is the number of man. It's also the number of the synagogue of Satan, the Zionists, who just so happen to own the Mets. Okay? I also noticed that the Kansas City Royals have a player named Lorenzo Cain, spelled just like in the Bible, Cain, C-A-I-N. Now, Lorenzo Cain wears number 6, and I find that to be a hell of a coincidence. You got Cain, who was the seed of Satan, who killed his brother Abel, wearing the number 6, which is the number of man and the number of the synagogue of Satan. The Zionists love the number 6. This is why 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, supposedly. Right? That's 6 with 6 zeros. The 6-Day War. The 6-pointed star, which is all encoded with 666. 6 is their number. Okay? They love it. It's the number of man. It's the number of the synagogue of Satan. Now, in the last inning of Game 5, this guy Cain hit a bases-loaded double, scoring 3 runs. And after he did that, this is how number 13, Perez, reacted. Flashing those devil horns. The Masonic hand signs. Now, is this enough to prove that sports are scripted? That they're rigged? That they're all designed by the numbers, by the numerology? I'm not sure. So I ask myself all the time, how does it work? How is it scripted? Is there 1 or 2 players on each team that are in on the act? Is it the umpires who are behind the rigging? Are these umps or like the NFL refs or the NBA refs, are these guys just like secret society Freemason types who are planted in the game and control pretty much the entire outcome of the game just to rig it? I mean, think about how much control an umpire or a referee has over the outcome of a game. On top of that, Major League Baseball has gone to instant replay, where they send it to a man in a bunker in New York, and you really don't even know who's in that bunker or who's actually making the call. It could be anybody. There's no accountability. There's no camera in the bunker showing you who's making these decisions. It's definitely sketchy. And I definitely think it's pretty crazy that the New York Mets lost the 111th World Series on 11-1 in New York City. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think sports are rigged. Let me know how you think they do it. And let me know why you think they do it. I mean, obviously, sports are used to distract. Sports are used to keep us distracted, keep us like sheeple. We're all worried about the outcome of the World Series or all the football games on Sunday when we should be more worried about important things. You know, there was no organized sports back in 1776. Can you imagine if they had the NFL or television back in 1776? There might not ever have been a revolution, you know? All the revolutionaries might have gotten together and said, hey, you want to fight a war? Oh, I can't fight a war today. I got to watch the baseball game. You know, I got to watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians or the Jersey Shore, you know? What would I do if I didn't find out what happened to Snooki this week? This is why nothing gets accomplished in the modern era, okay? The thing is, though, professional sports can be used to distract us even with it not being rigged. So I'm really on the fence with this. That's all I got for you on the World Series. Please leave me your feedback and let me know what you think.